Aoashi is a sports anime that's not just good because of the girl, though god I wish he'd look at me like that, but also because it manages to nail the emotional aspect of a sports show alongside some decent animation that uses very subtle CGI, great direction, a very fitting OST, and also this cute girl again. Fuck, I wish she'd smile at me like that. A sports anime is, ironically, not just about the sport, but the story that it's telling through the sport, meaning that the character motivations and drama are equally as important as the guys kicking each other's balls around. This show nails that perfectly, and although it's a little light on the romance aspect between Ashito and Hana in comparison to something like Ahiru no Sora where it's a decently sized focus, it still manages to encapsulate the chemistry between the two and show exactly why Hana is even existing in the story in the first place. It's an aspect that'll likely continue to be explored in the anime, which has me excited because, good lord, the things I'd let Hana do to me, but also because it's already shown in previous episodes just how great it is at handling these character moments, pacing everything just right so that the games that take place in between these segments don't feel like they're taking away from them, and vice versa. The story is about Ashito, a guy who's really good at soccer and has excellent instincts and intuition when playing, but actually he's also total shit at soccer because he can't verbalize that intuition and rely on it consistently. It's like a flash in the pan where he just visualizes and knows exactly what to do to score a goal, but he lacks the ability to recall exactly how he did it or explain it very well. Being calm and composed even in an intense confrontation such as a battle or sport, and being able to not only instinctively know what to do best and at what time to do it, but to also verbalize it and rely on it consistently to help both you and your team, assuming it's a team sport, is what makes great players, warriors, and so on. And also having cute girls in hats look at you like you're scum helps too. Aoashi understands that, and rather than it following the typical sports anime formula of guy goes to an underdog school with shit players, gets better with the team as he goes along, and then they eventually come out on top, it instead has the main character start by trying out and making it into the very top school. So rather than the story being about his team slowly working their way up to be the best, focusing on a tale of camaraderie that many people who haven't played a sport are likely to understand, it instead focuses on the selfish rise of Ashito himself and how he can learn to become a better player than his teammates, eventually going pro so that he can give his family a life of luxury. That is something that every person can connect with, and it's something that each of the characters in Aoashi possesses. That selfish drive to better themselves and their lives, as well as the lives of the people who support them, but at the same time coming to realize that something like soccer is a team sport and that you have to rely on your teammates. But rather than that being the driving message Ashito and the others need to learn, it's more about overcoming and being better than the other people on their team to be number one, because at the end of the day, you don't hear about the team Lionel Messi plays for, you hear about fucking Lionel goddamn Messi. I don't actually play soccer, so I have no idea who this guy is. They don't undercut the value of teamwork, but they make it known that it's less about working with your teammates and more about relying on them and knowing what they'll do. And Aoashi beautifully represents this by having Ashito be the type of player who relies on instinct. Because of this, we frequently see Ashito as the type of guy who wants to be number one, telling his teammates to just pass the ball to him and he'll score, not realizing that he's actually kinda shit at the game, but occasionally he will enter Ultra Instinct and immediately understand what he has to do to score, which frequently ends up with him relying on other players to make the goal for him, with him instead being the driving piece that made it all possible, even if he didn't make the goal himself. This dichotomy between Ashito's personalities allows us to see both the selfish aspect as well as the intellectual aspect that relies on teamwork, but without shoving it down your goddamn throat every 5 seconds. The anime manages to tell the same story as so many others, but it makes it different at the same time, and it's all done just by switching the perspective, and they do it masterfully. They take inspiration on the character front from Ahiru no Sora and One with the Wind, and on the hype front from goddamn Haikyuu. Such a thing is only possible though because of how good the direction is. A sports story, or really any story for that matter, lives and dies by how interesting it can be and how invested it can make you feel. Aoashi's director Akira Sato is no slouch in that department, and he knows exactly how to play to the strength of what he's directing, even though his only other work was Release the Spice, and while that did maintain its spy theme throughout, it wasn't that much to write home about. Still, the director understands what makes Aoashi work, and he makes sure to amplify those scenes, such as in the beginning episodes where you know Ashito is going to win at tryouts and make the team. He makes you feel uncertain as to whether or not that such an obvious outcome is true. And more importantly, his directorial skills alongside the writing and sound direction all strike in perfect harmony to have you feel the same level of anxiety as the characters, being very methodical with what sounds you hear to achieve it, and then showing them score as you jump out of your seat in excitement. It's a fine example of how you adapt something from drawings with no sounds to a full-on production, in comparison to something like Spy X Family, which doesn't make use of practically any of these factors and mostly just rides on the source material's coattails, as they insist on giving it a very one-to-one adaptation with no flair. But don't worry, I'll talk about how much I want to fuck you again soon. That said, the direction, writing, music, and practically every other aspect of the anime is best shown in episode 5, one of, if not the best, episodes out of this entire season of anime. In it, they take such a simple premise like Ashito leaving to Tokyo to join the soccer club, doing all of it for his mom, whose life he wants to make better, and they make it a 10 out of 10. Ashito's mom, in the previous episode, had done something she usually wouldn't and showed weakness in expressing that she felt like Sakura was stealing Ashito away from her. Because of that, and the financial burden it put on his poor family, Ashito decided not to go for the sake of his mother, but she insisted anyway and refused to talk to him when it came to her emotions, always changing the subject instead. By the end of it, Ashito leaves without ever saying anything to his mom, instead just having his friends and brothers see him off, but once he gets on the train, he reads a letter his mother left behind. In it, she says the one thing any person would want to hear when they're trying their best for someone. I'm proud of you. Hearing that from the person he cares so much about obviously causes a rise in emotions in him, and it's so excellently well done, but it still continues as the music plays methodically in the background, revealing that, despite their dire straits when it came to money, she not only was able to pay for his school and supply him with funds, but she also replaced his cleats as she continued to tell him that he's everything to her and that she's proud of him. That moment that you already knew was coming happens, and you see Ashito's tears hit the paper, but god damn, it's so excellently done that it gets you anyways. I'm crying, you're crying, fuck you. The author manages to help you feel these emotions of these characters by relating it back to your own life, but the adaptation enhances those emotions by adapting the scene so well, such as showing shots of the mother walking as he reads and panning back to Ashito's reaction every once in a while. All the while, the same OST plays in the background without any rising sound to accompany the moment. Just the same methodical piano the entire time. It doesn't treat it as some bombastic moment that you should cry at because it wants you to, nor does it try to force you to cry by constantly showing you other people doing so. Instead, it treats it exactly as the normal human moment that it is, and that's what makes it so good, because it makes it feel real on purpose by doing all of the things I mentioned prior. It's an absolute masterclass in how it's done, and just one of the many things that prove why the anime is good as both a story and as an adaptation. It likewise does well on how it portrays the coaching, as they never spell out or hold the hand of Ashito and the others. I did see people complaining about how the coaches suck at their job in this show, but those people clearly have never taught anyone before and don't understand how it works. As the show itself says in episode 9, by teaching someone to do something, pointing them on the right path but not telling them enough to understand it completely, it will make it stick with them because they figured it out themselves, so that the knowledge and muscle memory will never leave them. If they had just held their hand and guided them along, they wouldn't learn or retain anything, and because of this, it makes sense how someone like Ashito can be so good at soccer thanks to his innate instincts, but be so shit at the basics because he's never needed them when his instincts would guide him through. He only realizes that he sucks, even though the anime shows it since episode 1, if you're paying attention, because of the other members being so good that he can no longer just fly by on shit basics and the occasional ultra instinct. He has to learn to consciously activate that instinct of his and use it on the fly, whilst also improving his basics, because by doing so, as we see in episode 9, it will open up that instinctual feeling to new and different plays, meaning that instinct will occur more frequently, and the more frequently it happens, the more Ashito remembers the feeling and can learn to verbalize it and do it consciously, which again is also seen in episode 9 when he barks orders rather than staying silent. The author manages to tie in him learning the basics to his innate talent, and it's masterfully done. Rather than learning one and then the other like they would in a typical shonen, it instead coexists. It's absolutely brilliant, and I love how Stonehead Coach is going about teaching Ashito by giving him these riddles to figure out for himself. It's not only a good coaching strategy, but it also makes it more exciting for us, the viewer, as we likewise try to figure it out just like Ashito, which is the anime, again, doing exactly what it needs to do to make you feel like you're in the same position as Ashito and everyone else. So not only does it handle the slow, emotional moments well, but it also handles the sport aspect well. Holy shit, what an astute observation. And doesn't flounder on either side, but it does have some downfalls, like Ashito's voice being annoying as shit as if he were in a screaming competition with Asta. and likewise when Ashito does something intense and cool, and then this blonde fuckface explains exactly what you just watched not even a minute later, despite the fact that you already knew what he did because you just fucking watched it. It's not perfect, but it's goddamn good, and regardless of if you like hype sports anime, good writing, or slow character moments with a bit of romance, this anime has it all, and I highly recommend giving it a shot. But if you'd rather watch some shitty fantasy anime, then click this video here.